Oh man, I want to be an author. I may be some average schmuck who can't write or come up with any ideas, but dang it, I look at the fame and fortune of J.K. Rowling, Stephen King, and George R.R. Martin, and I'm like, I want some of that. I want to be an author so I can experience stuff just like that.
It is great, average schmuck. The success they experience, the money they earn, the fame they live with. It's the kind of life mere mortals like ourselves long for more than anything else.
It really is, David, host of the successful worldwide reaching writers podcast, The Writ. And I want that success. I want to live like an author.
Live like an author, you say?
Yes.
You want the full author experience?
Yes.
Well, I've got good news for you, Mr. Schmuck. We at the Writ this week are hosting the Instant Author Experience Sweepstakes, where one lucky participant gets a first-hand look of all the success and fortune the average author lives out every day.
Whoa, that's so cool. Man, imagine all the awesome and amazing things the average author experiences every day.
You won't have to imagine if you win. Should the gods of fate be on your side, you'll get your book published and reap the rewards of $7 whole in royalties every day. You'll get to work in an unrelated job to pay the bills while informing friends and friends of friends and friends of those friends of your book that will eventually be your main source of income. You just know it. You'll feel the excitement of your friends and family saying they'll buy your book right away, and then months go by and your sales never go up once. You'll witness the joy of social media advertisements where you spend hundreds of dollars and thousands of hours trying to get just a couple of people to just take a chance on you and give up some of their hard-earned money for your book. You'll feel the anticipation of your story becoming the next best big seller someday. As you email local chains and attractions related to your book to try and get them to sell it for you with a response rate of nearly 3%.
Wow, that all sounds amazing! Is that what the average author really experiences?
Absolutely, my friend. Especially if you're self-published. And you can experience it too! Just enter the Instant Author Experience Sweepstakes, and all this will be yours if you win.
This episode of The Writ is brought to you by Megazoic, my self-published and self-promoted book series. Buy on Amazon.com. Please? Please! No, really, it's selling quite well, actually. Really. Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of The Writ, the show where two twits armed with nothing but their wits and minor experience insist that they have all the answers of writing and writing events outside your main story. I can say things.
So, yeah, listeners, welcome back. We're in the final of our set about outside your story writing stuff.
Yes.
We talked about prologues.
We are in the epilogue
interludes.
part of it. We're doing the epilogue on this set.
we are wrapping the bow on the present. So
we
anything
are
to add before we jump in?
are topping the tree. We are putting the fingers in the pie. We are
we putting fingers in the pie or putting frosting on the cake.
You know, like you stick
anyway.
your finger in it up, you're done. You know, my great-grandmother always used to say... Actually, no, my grandmother. It was just my grandmother. My mom's mom, she liked to tell my mom when she was a little girl that the reason why we have belly buttons is because God stuck a finger in your belly and he's like, oh, you're done.
What about people that have outies, though?
He stuck a finger from the other direction.
No, I was gonna say some of the material came out when he pulled his finger.
Yeah, that's it. Or wait, you said why do people? What about people who have Audis? I don't know. That's such a nice car that people might not always have it. I'm really proud of that joke.
It actually was pretty damn good.
Thank
I'll
you.
give you that. All right, so we're on to the last one, epilogues,
yes.
aka tying the loopholes.
Yes. What loopholes to be tied? To be looped.
If there are
none.
Looped and hold? What are you on about?
Okay, look, every time I do one of the fourth episodes of these things, I'm really tired. I'm actually probably the least tired of this time than the others, but I'm still really tired. So let's power through this fricker.
All right. Anyways, so as we did with prologues,
yes.
I've got a couple of questions related to epilogues here.
We'd love to answer those questions.
Does a certain amount of time have to lapse for a proper epilogue
Nah, if it's more than a few minutes, that's fine. Aha! I made that joke again! Just like I did with... No, it's more than a few
For
minutes.
more on that, listen to episode 38 of the Writ.
Was it 38? Yeah, it was. Okay, cool. Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Again, we've only got 2 more left. And actually, not this, at this point, I don't even care. I say yes. There has to be a certain amount of time. Sometimes something big has to have wrapped up, and the events of the epilogue are what happens afterwards. You know, if it's just the next day or later that afternoon, usually it's not really important enough to justify a separate chunk of the story, rather than just making it a final chapter. However, if years or decades,
that would just be the falling action, right?
Yeah, exactly. The denouement, as this episode is called, the detached denouement is the subtitle of this episode. However, if years or decades or even eons have passed, then yeah, having an epilogue makes sense.
So my question to you, I just can't resist the little jab. You mentioned that there's a prologue in Era's End, no spoilers. But do you have an epilogue 80 million years in the future?
Considering that would be 15 million years after now. Yes, I do. It's called Wildlife of Tomorrow.
Are we going to explain it?
Nope.
No.
So good. But now you know, listeners, how far tomorrow is. Actually, it's not even that far. So it's a bit further.
One of these days, we will actually have to explain that.
I don't think we should.
I think if we ever decide to quit doing the Writ, like the last episode before we sign off, we'd finally explain what the heck it's supposed to be.
Finally, we got one last thing to close.
We have one loophole to close, guys.
All right, guys, one last thing. One last rip bow to pull. One last loop to hole. One last belly button to poke. Or whatever.
And make sure it's done. Anyway, no, okay. But anyways, yeah, so obviously an epilogue is like a prologue.
Except
it's just
the other
at the
way,
opposite end of the story. If time hasn't eclipsed, then it doesn't feel separate enough to really warrant one.
Right, exactly.
The events that finish should have some impact, and this epilogue, should you have it, is where you can explore that in better detail, so it needs to realistically be late enough for that to feel natural.
Yeah, absolutely. Like enough time has ever passed. Like it's more than just the falling action. Like it's certain things that have happened, and like, okay, well, what happened after that? Like this could be like the main, like sort of like how I said that the prologue could be about the main characters as kids. Maybe the epilogue is the main characters having kids.
Sure.
So
if enough time passes between that and the climax. I mean, if the wife, I know that with your dinosaurs, this metaphor does not hold up. If the wife is expecting a child, then we see the child has already become a toddler or something.
Yeah,
that kind of a thing.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
So I'm curious, are there, I know because I made this list, but like, are there various ways to like deploy an epilogue?
Yeah. Like, you could have it just be like a sequel hook, like, have it be like, it could be like something that's unresolved, that's like, but actually, from the wreckage, the main villain's hand popped out, and then he's like, or like
the story ends, and then 10 years later. Now that one seems kind of weird to me.
Yeah,
like
10 years later,
like the hand popping out.
10 years later, wow, he's been content in there for a while.
I know. Well, I don't know how long it took it for the hand to pop out, but like theoretically,
and then another 10 years, and then the other hand pops out.
Well, I mean,
it's a lot of rubble, guys. He's got to work his way through it. So.
Yeah. No, but like I think. If you have something so conclusive, but you want to leave it open ended, that enough time has passed, and you want to set up a sequel that sometime you can. Like maybe it's not the hand. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm using my preferred adventure type genre, I guess, but
yes.
It's the guy finding this in the wreckage that, oh hey, this exoskeleton is still intact. Maybe I can use it for something. It's this strange guy we've never seen before, but it sets him up to be a factor in the next book, kind of thing.
Or the secret weapon that was in the wreckage. It's been taken.
Yeah.
So
by who, kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yes.
And so you can set, like, yes, obviously you can accomplish this in falling action as well if you're immediately planning to go to a sequel, right?
Or it could be like those things, or like in like the Halloween tales, where like the kids are in this haunted house, but then they find out it was all a ruse, and as they're walking off, laughing off, they look back and find out it really was haunted. The house that they were in that was all a ruse has disappeared.
Doesn't make any sense. Okay.
It's surprisingly common when that happens. It's like a...
Yeah, fair enough. It was all a dream, you know.
Then he woke up.
But that's not necessarily an epilogue thing as much as a following action.
No, it's not. You're right. Yeah.
Anyway, wrapping up a minor plot thread. Like maybe you just wanted to leave that unsolved and thought, hey, the battle's over, things have finally calmed down, but I want time to pass before it can be resolved. And so you put that in the epilogue.
Right. Something like just that final thing that, like that, yeah. I'm adding content. I'm adding valuable insight.
Another one that I have here is taking fan fiction possibilities away from your readers.
Yes! I am all for this. Not only do you show the main characters having children, but you see all their children, and all their names, and probably even their children. There's no questions left unanswered.
It's kind of funny how many my family raised me in the church. I still affirm my Christian faith identity, but like the Bible, there are some kind of dry parts, and I just laugh at these long genealogies. I'm thinking, I don't need a genealogy in the epilogue of my book.
Yeah, not just the Bible. There's a lot of like family sagas, especially like Iceland. Like I took several Norse mythology classes and other stuff, as well as like talking about the mythology, talking about like the stuff that we've uncovered from there. Iceland is full of family sagas, like the lost texts we find, and these are all fictional. But there's like these, or even some of them are like historical, but some of them are fictional. And it's like there's so much cousins and nephews and uncles and aunts and like third cousins and sons and grandsons.
I'm going to tangent one thing, and that is this. Everybody has a story.
Yes.
The question is, do you hear it, and is it that interesting?
I'm sorry, person, but your story that you're telling just isn't that interesting. How would you like to say that to some poor schmuck?
Well, don't say it to some poor schmuck.
And but speaking of schmucks in this episode,
I'm always astounded when you walk into an airport or a train station or this place that's a terminus of major transportation. And you see all these people, and it just in those moments it tends to hit me. Wow, every single one of these people have desires, family members, loved ones, people that don't like them as much, things that have happened, stories that they could tell.
That's a really big human sort of thing. It's like it's existential. Like it's like recognizing that your story is one of many, and like you're not the main character in everyone's story. So, and that's a thing that some people
the main character in your own.
Some people don't know. So actually, it's like some people
you're only the main character in your own story.
Yes.
And speaking of stories, let's get back to this.
Yeah, okay.
So, because you're taking fan fiction possibilities away from your readers, also it can be a little bit of your own wish fulfillment and how the characters proceed.
Right.
So, like, maybe you wanted these characters to end up together, and so you make it canonically so that other people, without changing things directly, can't make their favorite relationship happen.
Yeah.
So, Quintan or whatever the
you're such a Quintan shipper
Cortan and Quinn.
And a Swinky shipper. For context, listeners, buy Megazoic Ding. I'm just half-assing at this point. Just buy it, I guess. Well, I don't know. Whatever.
Please buy his book, please.
Yeah, that's right. This is that episode.
Anyways, you better not be half-assing that then.
Please, God, ding, 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 buy my book.
No, anyway. Yeah. There's also the problem you may not have enough like full story to actually make another adventure.
Yeah.
So like with Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
When that epilogue happens, you're not seeing a full separate tale. It's just informing us how the characters have grown.
Right.
and some of the fallout.
Yeah.
It's not like she had another book ready to go with these characters' lives.
Even though she did with Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Cursed Child, but that was something later too. For more on adaptations, please listen to episode 41.
Yeah.
I
don't think we've done adaptations one.
No, we are for that. We haven't, but I mentioned it last time, which was episode 40.
Oh, right. Okay, fine.
Anyway, so yeah.
Add this episode to the list of ones where we spoil Harry Potter. I mean, you didn't go into details about what happened.
I didn't go into detail.
You just said that Deathly Hallows had an epilogue. So
that's not really a spoiler.
I guess.
I didn't say who is in the epilogue.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Well, it's definitely not Harry because he totally dies. Ha!
Spoiler alert. Dumbledore dies.
Spoiler alert, Dumbledore lives and Harry dies.
Okay. So yeah, another way to deploy an epilogue that I can think of is like summaries for any eventual wiki entry
yes.
on that character location. So like it's just the short Cliff Notes version that what happened afterwards. You might leave it open-ended enough that people could tackle a story of their own with it.
Right.
You might tackle a story of your own in that time. Like if Harry Potter's epilogue is 20 years or whatever it is in the future, there's time in there that you could write a story.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like the interim.
Maybe it doesn't come to you right now. But it comes to you later.
Right.
So you leave it open-ended.
Yeah, exactly.
But you at least set up a framework. Like, this is why I said, in all seriousness, taking fanfiction possibilities away. If you set the end, it must work its way there, right?
Right.
This is why writing prequels is so hard. We talked about that before as well. Because you know where you're going to already.
Yeah.
So no matter what you do or what somebody else comes up with in an idea, it must work to that point because that is established.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes it simultaneously harder to write extra stories, but also easier to, close the thread.
Right.
If you want to do that.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Are there other ways to deploy an epilogue that you're aware of?
I think we've covered it a lot. Having it from sometimes having it from like a different character's perspective. Like I said, maybe the children of the characters, or like maybe even like an onlooker looking at all that's happened. Like, if the main character dies, maybe having another character look at the statue of that character, and learning about all the heroic things he did that helped save him, or something. There's a lot of different ways.
Why is this person honored with a statue?
Right.
Why did he or she earn one?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that leads into my last question about epilogues, and that is
the epilogue of the epilogue episode.
Necessary. We're not there yet.
Epilogue
actually necessary. I mean, if the universe ends, then theoretically you wouldn't need one. But
what stories?
Also, you should properly wrap up the conflict in the main story arc. So simply leftover bits may not be enough to merit an epilogue on its own.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you're not being conclusive, that's not doing your job.
Well, ask Alfred Hitchcock that. Is it Alfred Hitchcock? Ask Alfred Hitchcock.
Alfred Hitchcock, yeah.
That's when he did The Birds,
famous
which
director.
has the most open, stupid ending I have ever seen in a movie. Spoiler alert for The Birds, listeners.
For a movie that's already like 30 plus years old.
About 50 years old. It came out in the 60s, I believe. So it's 50.
Okay. Well, about 50 years old then. Yeah,
The Birds ends with nothing resolved. The main characters escape. They were trapped in their own house from all the birds. The birds have attacked all around the world, but they come in waves, and so the main characters manage to escape while the birds are being calm. And this main character gets injured. They have to take her to a hospital. They slowly get in their car and creep out, and then the birds watch them leave, and then the movie ends. They keep asking the questions about the movie. Why are they doing this? What's happening? And then this main character gets attacked and they have to take him to a hospital. Do they find out? I don't know. Do they resolve what the birds are doing? I don't know. Do they get eaten by the birds later? I don't know. The movie just ends. And it's so stupid. And of course, a lot of film students are like, oh, actually, that's what makes it brilliant. Screw off. Like, it's just...
Well, okay. I mean, in one aspect and in one aspect only, it is brilliant.
Okay.
And that is, it allows you to put your personal interpretation.
That's just an excuse for laziness. But...
Well, and I'm not necessarily arguing with you. However, I would definitely say the resume of Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, I know. I have no ground to say.
So
that was a classic movie for a reason. So I guess somehow it's something I'm just not understanding. Let me just say I don't appreciate
Well, and you
it.
said the same. And you said the same thing about like William Shakespeare being a hack. So
I've never said he's a hack.
Okay, maybe not in those words, but you don't like him.
That's because I'm an English major and I was forced to study him. So anyway, like I cannot deny the contributions he has done to society and to the English language and to storytelling. So
Sure.
but personally, yeah, he can.
Well,
he
I
can
mean,
just...
not like we kept most of his era's English, but oh well.
Well, actually, I took this one class called the History of the English Language, and there are 3 periods of English. The Old English, that's where like Beowulf is. It's basically non-understandable.
Middle English and Shakespearean.
No, old. That's actually the start of modern English is Shakespeare. So,
Oh, okay.
so
Sorry, I don't know the terminology. I didn't take those classes.
there's Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. Middle English is like throughout the Middle Ages, and
Sure.
Modern and Renaissance, and then the Modern English started with Shakespeare. So it's the farthest back you can go where you can actually understand English, modern day. So
Without a lot of translation necessary.
yeah, because like
type words.
Old English is completely unintelligible to a modern English speaker now. So it's basically like
Well, and even Shakespeare, because the vocabularies were so much larger in that era. That,
well, he invented
like,
a lot of
words.
words.
And Shakespeare, well, be that as it may, we do not use them frequently enough to really remember what they mean.
But there's also new words that he didn't know about, like meme. Surely there's another one I could come up with.
Surely there's a better example out there.
Tubular.
Okay, well, can we get back to
Yes.
when is an epilogue actually necessary?
When is it necessary? I'd say a lot of time it's not necessary. Like anything that happens in a denouement can usually be attached to the main story rather than needing a separate epilogue. But it sort of like prologues, like I mentioned.
unless you have time.
Yeah.
Unless you have a time lapse, I guess. But yeah, if it doesn't happen in a denouement, then it's going to be
Right. Yeah.
Then it's probably you could even go without it. Honestly, it's not.
Yeah, well, I think say a lot of times
necessary.
go without it. But if there's a big amount of time that's passed, like I've said earlier, or if there's a certain number of elements that are changed in between the narrative and the epilogue, then sure, throw one in there. Why not?
Yeah, that's fair. Personally, for me, if you ended the story with some happily ever after shtick, you don't really get the opportunity to write one.
Right. I mean, I'd say so.
I mean,
that sounds pretty conclusive to me.
If it ended happily ever after, there's no loose ending to tie up.
Yeah.
If we know how it concludes without much variation, obviously there time immemorial in between, so there could be changes, but they're not major ones.
Right.
There's no need for payoff to that story thread.
Yeah.
I mean, this kind of feels to me like the place in your draft when you realize that you needed to see the main cast's reaction to the climax ending, but you went through the rest of your falling action too briefly to say anything about it.
Yeah, well, in that case, just edit it in.
Yeah, exactly. To which I add, maybe an edit would be more effective.
Write it better next time. Basically, is the thing to say there.
Well, as I said, draft. You get a chance.
Yeah.
Further, it's a darn sight harder to make people care about an epilogue than a prologue.
Really? I'd
Why?
say it's opposite, especially if you've earned that epilogue. But
well, okay, if you've earned the epilogue, people are more likely to go, but just on its own merits. My thought is this. If they're picking up a new book and it's a new world, they're more excited to see a prologue because it's going to likely explain something that makes it different from the world they inhabit, which is why they're either going to continue or not continue reading.
Right.
But the epilogue, the story's already over, and they want to move on to something else because they're, in this day and age, we don't have the long attention spans anymore because, everything in our fingertips and everything. Heck, I want to...
Well, if you're a good storyteller, hopefully that they don't want to move to something else, but...
Well, I mean, if you're doing a good job that they want to see how it ends, then
Yeah.
maybe. But if you get to the end of a book and it's conclusive enough, I don't care if that character ended up with that girl or not. I mean, that's a perception that could exist.
Maybe.
And so I believe that it is harder to get interest in somebody reading an epilogue. By comparison, that casual doesn't really care. It's just, oh, great, extra pages. Who wants to read all the appendices? Kind of a thing.
Maybe. I don't know.
That said, that's more appendices, which, by the way, we should probably appendix that to this episode too. Sorry, just thought about that.
Another epilogue to the epilogue. An epilogue to the appendix of the epilogue. I don't know.
Sorry, I just thought of that though. But anyway,
well, we could add more minutes to this. Sure.
Well, sure. But let me finish this before we add appendices.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Go
before
ahead.
we appendix it. It's a darn sight harder to make people care more about an epilogue than a prologue. I mean, with the obvious note that if you do a great job telling a compelling story, they're going to want to find out.
Yeah.
If it's there.
Right.
They'll want to read it.
Right, exactly.
Obviously, that prologue is kind of the thing that gets them in the door. The epilogue is the thing that closes the story in their mind.
Right, exactly.
So perhaps more of the time than even the prologue, I would advise against it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
If the story is conclusive, then you pat yourself on the back, figure out if the idea gets revisited either through edits or extensions, i.e. a sequel, then move on.
Yeah.
If the story isn't conclusive, you may have enough leeway to add this little bit. If your story is incomplete without it, then does it really count as an epilogue in the first place?
That's true. You gotta find that happy balance. So between like
if you're leaving the end of the battle for the epilogue, it's not an epilogue, dang it.
It's just the end of the story. Yeah.
Doesn't belong separately after the main story is over.
Right.
So that's my thing about epilogues. Real quick, let's appendix one more thing, and that is appendices.
Yes, let's appendix
this. Is kind of like the
and then like a good appendix, we will rip it out afterwards. No.
Like an appendix, it's not entirely necessary. I'm kidding. Anyway.
Okay. Still, let's continue on to this not entirely necessary thing, shall we?
It's true, though. You can't say I'm wrong.
You are not wrong, so let's do it.
Anyways, with appendices, these are kind of like encyclopedia entries in miniature.
Yeah.
So, like, the version of The Lord of the Rings that I had as a kid, it had this 3 stories in the same cover. It was a paperback, so it was a really thick book.
Nice.
And then in the back, they had, like, I want to say 6 or 7 appendices. And it's basically, and they were lettered, not numbered. So it was Appendix A, B,
right. I've seen that before, yeah.
And each of them focuses on a certain aspect, a certain, like, thing of the world. Which, again, it's very much like the encyclopedia in miniature.
Right.
And honestly, it's not a bad... Because, like, it's small enough that you could tackle it on your own. You're bound to complete it because you want to. And you can throw it in with a book for extra page content if you want.
Right, exactly.
And you can charge more if you have that in there as well, I suppose.
Capitalism!
Not that people are always in it for just the money, but, you know, it's kind of like all of those things you wanted to... I don't think a short story or a side quest belongs in an appendix. Let me say that. But
yeah, if it does, then you should consult our earlier episode where we're talking about other ancillary material.
You're just giving yourself more work, man.
Yep, I am. But it's weeks away from when I'm recording, so I'll worry about it later. Okay. Hey, this is Matt from the future when editing this podcast. Screw you, Matt from the past, making me do all this work. Anyway, bye!
So, if you want to write an appendix, it's like explaining world mechanics. Maybe there's an atlas in the back of your book. Yes. That allows readers to see the land that you've been focused on. So, like, if Donald decided to do this with Megazoic, and he hasn't at this point, but if there's a later edition, he might add, like, a map of the world so you can see
do have one, but I just haven't put it in there yet.
Is in relation to where the action's happening. That kind of a thing. That belongs in an appendix. Right. It's something that you don't need to read to understand the story itself, but it can inform the reader.
Right, exactly.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And that's why I make the joke that it's like not necessary.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, aside from the fact that in human beings, the appendix is literally not used anymore. We've evolved past the need for it.
Oh, if we're talking about literal appendices, then yeah.
Well, I mean, appendicitis is a pain. It's an organ that you don't otherwise use, and, were it not for the fact that it got inflamed or whatever it is, you wouldn't need to take it out because it would otherwise not affect you at all.
Ain't that the truth? Anyways.
So, yeah. Appendices are nice because they have more educational content. It can basically be like an essay from the author about the history of whatever, if you want.
Right.
So that's the place to have this stuff. It's helpful in its own way. It's very, very dry reading in a lot of cases because there's not much story happening.
Right.
So, approach them with caution, I guess. But that would even follow the epilogue. So, keep that in mind too. And properly, we put it in that order.
Yes.
So, we talked about appendices and epilogues.
So, shall we finally do the epilogue
closes
to
our
this
set.
epilogue?
That closes our set of this out-of-story stuff. That's it for this week.
What a journey
as well.
it's been.
If you have any questions or concerns, or maybe you're just wondering, do I really need this prologue, and you want our advice, please get in touch with us.
Yeah.
You can do that by contacting us, Matt D, 2 T's in that, at Matthew Donald Creator. You can use your own emails page with that email address directly, or go to the Matthew Donald Creator website and use the Contact Us page as well.
Yes.
If you have general questions, specific feedback, hey, the show's great, guys, keep going. I've got a question. Could you do this as an episode? We'd love to see an email like
Absolutely,
that. Absolutely,
yeah. Throw them our way.
Send it, throw them our way. If you're going to specify a co-host, use David Donald because we share Matt D in common.
We
That's
certainly do.
If you want to follow Donald on professional social
if you
media
want to
accounts,
follow
you can do
me.
that.
Go to at Matthew Donald Creator on Facebook, at Matthew Donald on Twitter, and Matthew Donald 64 on Instagram. Why 64?
Wait,
because
okay, I gotta pause because it sounded like you just said at Matthew Donald on Twitter. I didn't hear 64. I don't know if you said.
Oh, okay. Let me say this over again. Okay. If you don't follow me personally, yes, follow me at Matthew Donald Creator on Facebook, at Matthew Donald 64 on Twitter, and Matthew Donald 64 on Instagram. Why 64? Because
All right.
one day, a seemingly innocent enough day, I was sitting on my desk at work when another employee came up to me and asked, "Hey, Donald, you happen to know what a purple kumquat is?"
Oh God, no.
When I didn't know, he looked at me with a face paler than a ghost and with a jaw as agape as a jaw could possibly
Just
be.
shut up, please. No, we do not need this joke.
And he reported me to the boss. The boss looked at me dead in the eye and asked me with an angry tone if I knew what a purple kumquat is.
I'm serious, man.
When I
Stop
said
doing
no,
this.
he slammed his fist angrily on the table and fired me right on the spot.
Donald, shut up!
I was escorted out by the security guards, and
Please, for the
I
love
was
of God, stop telling you, shut the hell up!
all right. It was a great story, though. God, no need to be aggressive. Basically, I didn't know what a purple kumquat was. I ran across the street, and then I got ran over by a car 64 times.
No!
And the moral of the
No!
story is,
Stop!
look both ways.
Moral of the story is, stop listening. We are done. Us two twits are twitted out on the Ritwit
I'm Matt
about all
Donald.
this out of story stuff.
I'm
Matt David.
I'm sad now. You don't love me anymore, David.
We'll be back with a new set next time.
Maybe we won't.
And hopefully a distinct lack of purple kumquat jokes. And other than that, if you have questions, you know what to do. Until next time, please keep on writing.
Keep writing, y'all. Why'd I say that?
I don't know. We'll see you next time, listeners. Thanks for listening.
Bye.